Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and today I want to talk about my Jane Austen July TBR. I'm not going to go into detail about what Jane Austen July is. If you want to find out, do click the link in the description box that will take you to my announcement video for that, and that gives you all the information you need. So today is all about the TBR, the challenges as they are set by myself and my co-hosts of Jane Austen July, who are Katie from Books and Things and Marissa from Blatantly Bookish. Do check out their TBR videos as well. Let's jump right into it with the first challenge, which as always is to read one of Jane Austen's 6 main novels. This year I'm going boring. I am going to join the read-along, the group read-along, which is for Northanger Abbey. This is taking place in the first 10 or 11 days of July, so right at the beginning of the month. Northanger Abbey is a novel that I really enjoy. I think it's one of Jane Austen's more underrated novels. It's often considered more immature and juvenile than her other works, but I think there is a lot to that novel that maybe doesn't jump out at you on a first read. Things like the interesting way that she uses the authorial voice in the book. I think there are some characters in the book that are very unique to it, and the story itself is just fun. It's also a very funny book. I really like her humor in that. It's so much sharper than other novels. It's so much more satirical. It also feels more grounded in its time. There's so much I love about Northanger Abbey, and I can't wait to dive into that one again. This time I expect I'll be listening to this on audiobook. I'm probably going to listen to the version narrated by Juliet Stevenson, who is my all-time favorite audiobook narrator, especially the way she does classics. She's done, I think, all of the Austen novels, but also loads of other classics that are just delightful. Let's move on to challenge number 2, and that's to read something by Jane Austen that's not one of her main 6 novels. And for this, I'm also going to join the second group read-along, which for the first time ever in Jane Austen July history is her Juvenilia. I take absolutely no credit for this. Katie and Marissa picked out a list of short stories that are going to be included in that read-along, and I'm going to link you here to Katie's video in which you will find the entire list, and also brilliantly she has put links to these stories where you can read them for free online. So you don't have to cobble this together from a variety of editions, of print editions or curated editions. You can just follow those links, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I did consider buying like a paperback edition of Jane Austen's Juvenilia, but I think at least for now I'm going to look at them online, and if I enjoy them enough, then maybe after this Jane Austen July I will treat myself to a hard copy of those. I can't really say much about Jane Austen's Juvenilia because I haven't read them, hence why it was the other 2 co-hosts who made that selection. But from what I've heard from them is that these stories are well worth reading, that I guess similar to Northanger Abbey, they are a lot sharper than her later work, a lot more funny, and I'm just excited to discover more of that satirical side of Jane Austen's writing. The third challenge is to read a non-fiction work about Jane Austen or her time, and this is always one I struggle with a little bit because I don't, as a rule, enjoy non-fiction a whole lot. And this year I didn't feel like delving into something super analytical or super intellectual or super difficult. So I was looking for something a bit more lighthearted, and I came across a book by John Sutherland with the title So You Think You Know Jane Austen. Now John Sutherland is known for these sort of pop quiz analyses, I guess, of classic literature. And this one, from what I can tell, is a sort of half quiz, pop trivia type exploration of Jane Austen's novels, where you can read it and you can try and answer the questions and sort of test yourself to see just how big of a Jane Austen nerd you are. And that's kind of speaking to me. I like that idea. So I think I will get that one and then test myself and see if I'm an actual Austenite or if I'm just a poser, to use language I have not used since 2005. The fourth challenge, and actually my personal favourite challenge, is to read a retelling of a Jane Austen book or a work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time, because the options are truly endless for that. I looked at modern YA retellings, of which there are so many, and that's a genre of book that I have historically quite enjoyed. But I've also started exploring the genre of Regency romance. I read The Unknown Ajax by Georgette Heyer. There will be a review of that during Jane Austen July. Spoilers, I quite liked it, and so I'm kind of keen to read more of Heyer's work. I am quite intrigued by her final novel, Lady of Quality, which sounds like it's just dripping with those Regency romance tropes. Because I really want to dive full into the Regency romance genre. I want just all of it. I want the lords and ladies and forbidden romances and just, you know what I'm talking about, right? I do not want to read Bridgerton though. I saw the first series on Netflix and that was not for me. But other than that, if you have any recommendations for Regency romance, both for classic Georgette Heyer novels, because her opus is so large that I genuinely don't know where to start. There are so many titles that she's written. So, list your favorites. But also I'm intrigued by modern Regency romance, and more specifically I'm intrigued by queer, non-straight Regency romance. I've heard good things about books by Olivia Waite, who writes lesbian Regency romance, and from what I understand, they're also quite a bit more steamy than we can expect from your typical Georgette Heyer novel. Just drop your recommendations down below. If this is a genre that you are familiar with, then give me all of your recs, because this is one that I actually haven't made a concrete choice yet. I certainly haven't ordered anything yet. Let's move on to the fifth challenge, which is to read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen. So something that was published roughly between 1775 and 1817, plus or minus a few years. We're not that strict with Jane Austen's lifetime, especially since it was, unfortunately, so short. So I have two options here. The safe option is to reread Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which was actually published in 1818. But it's a book I've read once and really enjoyed, but it's been some years, so I feel like I'm ready for a reread of that. That's one I know I'm going to love. However, there is one author who I've been intrigued by for a while, and that is a Scottish author by the name of Catherine Sinclair. And she wrote a book that was very popular at the time called Modern Accomplishments. By the way, we are now in the 1830s, so we really are a little bit beyond Jane Austen's lifetime. However, Catherine Sinclair was a contemporary of Jane Austen. She just also outlived her. So she wrote this book, Modern Accomplishments, which is, I guess, also a sort of satire of, high-class society. And my only issue with that is that I haven't found a version yet that I can easily read on my Kindle. All of the versions I found are basically scans of the edition that was printed in the 1830s, and depending on the scan, that's a little bit tricky to read. You can technically get some of them on your Kindle because the Kindle can read PDFs, but basically I want to have to figure out the technical issues with that first before I can commit to that. But if I can find an easily readable version of that book, Modern Accomplishments, then I'll dip my toes into that. And I think that's probably going to be a little bit more of a challenge, as books by Jane Austen's contemporaries often are, just by their very nature. Let's move on to the sixth challenge, and that is to watch a direct screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book. I very recently rewatched the 1990s adaptation of Sense and Sensibility, which is my favourite. I love it. I'm making a video about it. And that kind of made me want to rewatch the miniseries adaptation of the same book from 2008 as well. So I'll probably track that down. I think it was a 3-part miniseries for the BBC. I also remember it being quite good, but I'm not as familiar with that one because I'm fairly certain I only watched that once, whereas I watched the 1990s adaptation a million times. So that's one that I want to see, and inevitably, at least in my head, I will draw comparisons to the 1990s one. And the final challenge is to watch a modern screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book. I haven't seen anything that's really intrigued me that's come out recently in terms of modern Jane Austen adaptations. The most recent one I watched was actually during last year's Jane Austen July, and that was Fire Island, which is excellent. And if you are after recommendations for this particular challenge, do check that out. It's wonderful. But I am craving something that I haven't seen for many years, and that is the miniseries Lost in Austen, which is a truly wonderful, cheesy, horrible, trashy miniseries about a woman who gets sucked into Pride and Prejudice. A Jane Austen fan who gets sucked into Pride and Prejudice. I really want to get hold of that and rewatch it. I haven't yet actually done the research for where to find it. So if you know, then comment down below and tell me, because I haven't got a DVD. I mean, even if I had a DVD, I haven't had a DVD player for many years. That was it for my to read and to watch for Jane Austen July. What I typically use my Jane Austen July TBRs for is also to give you a little preview of what's coming up in Jane Austen July, because as it's already June, I have been busy filming videos for Jane Austen July. So I can tell you that it's going to be the usual mix of incredibly silly and slightly less silly. There will be one book review, which is of the Georgette Heyer novel, as I've said. There's going to be a ranking video in which I rank certain characters in a Jane Austen book. Those are always super fun. I'll link a few that I've done previously in the description box. I think I did ranking Jane Austen's rakes. I'm sure I've ranked Jane Austen's Mean Girls. I've ranked Jane Austen's romances. I've ranked Jane Austen's books, of course. So there will be something along those lines coming up soon. And then I'm also, and this is possibly a little bit ambitious for what I'm typically done on this channel, but I want to do a sort of video essay type video about Sense and Sensibility, the 1990s adaptation, and compare it to the book. Now, I'm busy scripting that. That's going to be quite a long script. And I'm also trying to figure out how to do things like get clips from the film and insert them in a video in a way that doesn't flag it as a copyright infringement, you know, that sort of stuff. So I'm hoping that's going to happen, but it is ambitious for my skill level. We'll see if I get there. And then another thing I'm quite excited about is I'm doing a song. Yes, I'm collaborating with actually a viewer of this channel, and we together are writing a song about Mary Bennet. We have been writing a song about Mary Bennet for about a month, and it's in the final stages of recording. It's a rock song. I think you like it, and there'll be a little video about that as well. So that was my Jane Austen July TBR. So let me know what you're reading, what you're watching, and what you're looking forward to this Jane Austen July. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!